This year marks the first time we've seen Trump as a candidate who we already know has tried to overturn an election and who has been explicit about running as an authoritarian, anti-democratic threat. That alone should make a huge difference. But many critics say that the press coverage has fallen back into a traditional horse race mindset, just bending over backwards to give balanced coverage to Joe Biden and Donald Trump. CNN recently asking, is Biden's age now a bigger problem than Trump's indictments? I have to laugh. It's a ridiculous question. And last fall, the New York Times offering this strangely tepid headline, Trump takes veteran speech in a very different direction, to describe comments in which Trump used language that echoed Adolf Hitler.
We pledge to you that we will root out the communists, Marxists, fascists, and the radical left thugs that live like vermin within the confines of our country, that lie and steal and cheat on elections. The threat from outside forces is far less sinister, dangerous, and grave than the threat from within.
Trump vowing to attack the vermin within. That's the same kind of rhetoric used by fascists in 1930s Europe. The Times later revised their headline. The Times also sparking outrage for how it covered the Michigan primaries, in which Biden did a whole lot better with Democrats than Trump did with Republicans. The Times said that Biden faced a, quote, significant challenge, while Trump, quote, coasted to victory. So the urge to find nuance in Trump leads to some very odd results, like an Axios article that dove deep into the all-important topic of Trump's Mar-a-Lago Spotify playlist. Axios calling it a Rosetta Stone that demystifies how his mind works, and describing how guests are complimenting his ear for music, and that Trump likes to marvel at the sound quality of his stereo system. That image of Trump, by the way, is the image that they created. So the question is, how should we cover a candidate who has already tried to overturn, with violence, I will note, one election, and who's vowing to persecute and imprison his political enemies? Joining me now is Molly Jong-Fast, special correspondent for Vanity Fair and the host of the Fast Politics podcast, and Susie Benny-Karim, journalist and director of the Enemies of the People documentary about Trump's attacks on the media. She also hosts the podcast In Retrospect. Ladies, it's good to have you here. This is a really important conversation. I'm so glad that we're having this. Molly, I want to start with you. What's normal about election coverage? I don't think coverage in general has ever been normal when it comes to Donald Trump, but is there a rush to lean so much so to kind of compensate for the fear that we're looking like we've got this bias against him, that the normalization of it has now become a disaster, as we've seen?
Well, part of the problem with traditional political coverage is that there is a traditional framing, right? You cover a campaign in a specific way. You cover one campaign, you sort of have false equivalencies. They're kind of baked into the coverage. And what happens when you do coverage like that is you elevate the non-Democratic candidate, because there's no place to say, wow, because by comparing the normal candidate, the Democratic candidate, the candidate who follows all this sort of political norms, you elevate this other candidate. You sort of forgive his authoritarianism. And that is what the problem that you keep seeing again and again. Now, there's another problem, which is the right has worked the refs really hard. So every time a supposedly nonpartisan journalist is writing a story, they're saying, am I seeming too left? I must make and balance. So that is sort of the problem. The reality is we have to just cover the stakes and not the odds. We have to write about what a second Trump presidency would look like, jailing opponents, everything, the things. We have to take him seriously and literally.
And so, Susie, that is the threading of the needle that's so hard, right? It's this idea that I think when you attempt to overturn an election, a lawful election, that in and of itself should be a disqualifier for you.
Yeah.
You shouldn't deserve to get any space in traditional media, right? But in a way, we have an obligation to highlight, to Molly's point, what he promises to deliver if he makes it to a second term in the Oval, what that looks like under a second term of Donald Trump.
Yeah, that's really important because he doesn't need to have unmediated access the way he did in 2016, right? They don't need to put him on line or in front of a camera and say, just go for hours at a time. But I do think the voting public does deserve to see him and does deserve to see exactly how he expresses himself. But also, there's a lot of talk about Biden's age and his verbal stumbles. If you watch a Trump rally, you're going to see just as many verbal stumbles and weird sort of asides. He'll call Nikki Haley Nancy Pelosi. He'll sort of stop mid-sentence and won't know what he's talking about. So I do think it's important for people to see him, but the choices we make about how we show him, what context we put around that, how much we explain the stakes, as you're saying, that's what's really important here.
But Molly, there's a difficulty in that, right? Because you don't want to amplify, and that's something that we're very cognizant about. I try very hard on my show not to show him as much in some unfettered way. But how do you not continue to try to show and really kind of amplify how dangerous he is as an autocrat, as a fascist, as somebody who's going to deliver injustice if he makes it back?
Well, the most important thing is you say a lie is a lie, right? When he says something that's not true,
fact check and say it's a lie.
You say it's a lie. So you do a truth sandwich. You say Donald Trump said immigrants are vermin. We know immigrants are not vermin. That is an autocratic tell. And it dehumanizes a person in order to be able to do terrible things to them, right? I mean, we know what that word is. It never leads anywhere good. And so that's what you do. You have to just couch each lie in truth. It is your responsibility. What I think is interesting is in 2016, Trump ran what sort of had so much free media that he was everywhere, right? And he didn't even really need to spend money because he got so much free media. This time, he's not getting the same kind of media coverage, but in some ways, it's dangerous, too, because you're not seeing all of the slip-ups and also all of the really scary promises.
So, Suze, you have a really interesting documentary called Enemies of the People. I want to play a quick clip of it for our viewers and ask you a question on the other side. Take a quick listen.
George Orwell said it best. To see what is in front of your nose demands a constant struggle.
We are in a world of entertainment. It is political entertainment.
The media during the campaign, everything they believed was wrong.
It needs to be a ruthless telling of a history if we're going to learn anything from it.
It needs to be a ruthless telling is what they say, Suze. And so have we learned from the mistakes? Has media learned from the mistakes that they made before?
Well, listen, that documentary was an opportunity for me to talk to a number of media figures and leading journalists about the 2016 election. And many of them did admit to mistakes, right? They relied on polls too much. They didn't take him seriously at first. They sort of, treated him like a fun oddity in the beginning. They gave him this unmediated access to airtime. So they do admit that they made mistakes. And I would love to say that none of those mistakes are happening this time around. But as Katy Tur says in that clip, it is very hard to see what's happening in front of you. And so despite that reflection that they did in 2017 when I filmed those interviews, we're seeing the same kind of false equivalence. If you look at the age conversation, it's very similar to the conversation around Hillary Clinton's emails, right? And what happens when the media is desperate to be balanced, so they have to find something bad to say about the opposing candidate every time one of Trump's scandals comes up, is that the message sticks much more to the other candidate. The only thing to talk about with Hillary was her emails, her emails, her emails. So that's the message that stuck on her. And you couldn't figure out what was supposed to stick to Trump. And I think that's happening again, right? Now it's like you're being inundated with headlines. Biden's age is a problem. His memory is an issue. And you're besieged by scandals about Donald Trump. You're not even sure how many indictments he has at this point. So it's our job to not just get rolled in that way by talking points. We're being told that the issue is age. We can't think of something else. We don't want to be seen as partisan, so we just default. That's just a thing we cannot do this time around.
Molly, I got like less than 30 seconds, but I want you to say something for me.
The age thing, it's so funny because it's like, okay, so there was all this age hysteria. Then he did this State of the Union where he was as brilliant as he's ever been. And he was back and forth off the script, and he was great. His age is fine. And there really does. Biden world needs to just, and they do it. They have him out there, and they're pushing back. But, people just need to see him because he's really fine. And this is really a sort of cooked up false equivalency. You know, I do think it's the same as the emails, or even remember when Hillary was sick and they did a whole Hillary's health thing. I mean, it's just, it really is a straw man.
Hey, everyone. MSNBC has a new and improved app. You'll get real-time alerts and analysis, live blogs, in-depth essays, video highlights, and the best 2024 election coverage. Download the new MSNBC app. Here's how to do it. You tap on the App Store on your phone. You hit search on the bottom right corner. You type in MSNBC. You click on the MSNBC app. You click on Get or the cloud icon and enjoy it.